morning, welcome back to my channel. I'm having a little bit of that mud water stuff that I told you guys about, which is just okay, to be honest with you. But it's a hot beverage in the morning that's got a little bit of caffeine and some other good stuff in it. And I just realized I didn't put anything in it to sweeten it. That's partly why it tastes so bland, but I'm just gonna leave it like that. And I decided to start doing my makeup from scratch. So this is what I look like under a ring light with zero makeup on. I really don't like wearing foundation, to be honest with you. It feels good to like just let your face breathe, but I have some hyperpigmentation and, you know, some redness, and I just really love the way an evened out skin tone looks. But my skin has dramatically improved since I started using different skincare products, and if you want to learn more about that, you should go to James Welch's page. I'm always spamming him. I shouldn't probably just be a constant spammer, but that's where I learned a lot of good stuff. And I have a bruise on my forehead still, which I will cover, and I can mostly cover it now. It's finally fading. It's taking a long time. It's been over a week, and I talked about where it came from in a previous video, so I won't bore you with the details. I am starting with Milk Hydro Grip Primer. I've been using this stuff for a while, and I really love it. I love the way it feels. I like that it's got a little bit of a grippy texture to it, and I've heard other people in the beauty space say that they have like skepticism about whether primers really do much of anything, and I kind of feel the same way. But someone I'm thinking of, and it was probably Raw Beauty Christie, who am I kidding? She's like my main source because she's just a no BS kind of person, and I really love people like that who are just out there like, I'm just going to tell you my real opinion on something, and she gets sponsored by different things, but she'll always tell her real opinion no matter what. She was one, I think, that said that she doesn't really buy into the idea of primers, but she likes that primer. I think she said that. I shouldn't attribute that without being certain, so take that with a grain of salt. I wasn't even planning on making a video today, but last night, I'm trying to keep it short too. I say that every time. Starting with foundation. So I told you guys I blend 3 different things together. This is what's left of a tinted sunscreen, and it's a pretty good one, which is why I cut the package open and I'm using what's left in it, because there's so much left after you can't actually squeeze it out of the tube. That's partly why I prefer products in tubes, because I will always cut that tube open and like use plastic wrap around it and use it until it's totally gone, because I think wasting product like that is stupid. And then this is an Ulta foundation. It's the Youthful Glow Foundation Serum Drops in Light Warm. So you can kind of see, you know, I'll blend 3 different tones together. So I don't love that tinted sunscreen because it's really pink, and it almost leaves like a pink haze. And then this, obviously this Ulta foundation is too yellow for my skin tone, just a little too yellow. And then this is I love this stuff. I think this is a really good foundation, that It Cosmetics Your Skin But Better CC Plus Illumination Color Correcting Illuminating Full Coverage Cream plus Anti-Aging Hydrating Serum plus SPF 50. It's a mouthful, but this one though is in the shade Medium Tan, and I'm coming off of, even though it's December already for some reason, in the summer months, my skin tone gets a couple shades deeper from being out paddleboarding. And so this, which is the one I just put on, is at the top here, right there, is a little too deep for my skin tone right now. So that's partly why I'm blending it with like other lighter tones. I actually like to use, this is a tool for painters that I bought in an art supply store, and I use it to blend foundation colors on my hand. I've been doing this forever, and it's just really handy. And then I'll just take what's left on here and just put it right in my beauty blender. Ain't that clever? Anyway, I was inspired to make a video because I just watched last night, I started following Niesha K, who's another YouTube trucker. I'm a soon-to-be YouTube trucker, just a YouTube rando at this time. Niesha K is really cool. She is a awesome young Black woman. She's 25. And I wish so much that I had had like a fraction of her sort of like, personal, emotional regulation, self-management techniques. And when I was 25, I'd probably be in a totally different place in my life by now, I'll tell you that much. But she posted a video where she kind of talked about that specifically because she was talking about sexism in trucking and dealing with men who treat you badly because you're a woman. And her video spoke to me on a number of levels, in part because of the experiences I've had already being a woman working in a male-dominant environment, or in an environment where men clearly don't want you to be there, which is unfortunately a very common thing in many spaces, ranging from, you know, something like trucking that's very blue collar, up to physicians and politicians and you name it, like whatever it is you can think of that's like a higher, any segment of the economic strata. Is that the right way to phrase it? I don't know. You can find the impacts of sexism on women, and you can just stop any woman and ask, hey, how has your life been impacted by you being a woman in your career? And you will get, any number of us has stories. We all have stories. And it ranges from, you know, the term microaggression makes some people annoyed. They're like, oh, you're being a snowflake, which is bullshit. Because microaggression is real. And it's like a subtle thing, hence the term micro. And something that Niesha said in her video resonated with me so much because I've had very similar experiences. And she was talking about when she was going to, pardon me, I might not get my terminology exactly right because I'm not actually a trucker yet. And I have dealt with delivery and receivers and stuff like that, but not in the same context as a trucker would. But I think she was talking about dealing with a receiver and having to give her paperwork at a place where she was dropping off a load, and walking up to the window and the guy clearly knowing that she was standing there and just straight up ignoring her for a full 10 minutes. And when she was telling this story, my blood was boiling because I was just like, I know exactly what you're talking about. I have experienced kind of similar things, but it's different when you're trucking. I mean, when I was working for the delivery service, it is also time sensitive and you're on a schedule, but you don't have a truckload of stuff. And you don't have another truckload of stuff to pick up. You have a dresser or something. And like, you know, so the stakes aren't generally quite as high. So that's the thing that gets me in hearing a story like that, is this is a clear example of someone using what they feel like is their power to screw over somebody in such a petty way, you know? And for someone to do that, they're obviously, they don't feel like they have power in their lives. They're not happy in their lives. So this is their one little way to sort of get back at someone. And of course, when it's a woman, it's much easier for them to do that. You know, there's men who might see something like this or hear something like what I'm saying and be like, oh, you're just being sensitive. And it's like, if you mean sensitive in the sense that I have awareness because I've experienced something enough times to know what I'm talking about, then yeah, I'm being sensitive. But I'm just being aware of reality. So you can take that sensitive bullshit and keep it. Niesha is she refers to herself as a woman of God. She doesn't swear. And I'm here to tell you, I'll say all the curse words for you, Niesha. So, hey, this is looking pretty good, right? I gotta say. And then I didn't, for years, contour was not a thing, contour. First there was like bronzer and people just like made their face like 8 shades darker and it usually looked crazy. Like I'm thinking of someone like Paris Hilton in the early 90s or something. And then people started to do contour, and for a while that was crazy too, because all these like regular chicks on YouTube were doing what they didn't realize was actually drag makeup, and they're doing like crazy lines on their faces, and now things have settled down a little bit and there's just contour that helps define your face. So now for someone like me who just did straight up foundation for a long time, you start to notice where your face looks kind of flat, just like a moon, if you don't have your contour done yet. So before I do that, I'm going to do a little bit of concealer. Especially after time goes by, my makeup has been settling into my skin. It will be really noticeable if I use the wrong type of concealer, and I try to use very minimal concealer. And luckily, I have a good blend of foundation, so I don't really need, there's not much that I need to conceal. I have a little bit of dark circles under my eyes, and I have this bruise. It's already looking much better though. I have a Tarte Shape Tape, and if you've seen any of my earlier videos, you'll know I'm always using Ipsy stuff in my videos, and this is from an Ipsy bag. Because Shape Tape, while I think it's a great concealer, It's a little bit dry for my skin, like for my skin having a little bit of wrinkling texture, whatever you want to call it. And it tends to settle into that. That's why I started using, this is also Tarte, this is the Creaseless Concealer. And this I find is better for somebody who has a little bit more age in their skin. It seems like it has a little more of a malleable, I don't want to say oily because it's not oily, but it's softer. It doesn't have the same kind of dryness where you put it on and it's like, I don't know if that's a good description at all. I hope it is. So anyway, also this Tarte concealer is a little bit deeper of a shade too, and it works pretty well over this little bruised area. So I'm just tapping a tiny bit on there, and I kind of let it sit for a moment and almost dry a little bit before I got 3 concealers here, people. I know it's a little much. Before I blend it, because otherwise I'll just start to blend it and then Bruce will just be like, oh, hi, I'm here. And so then this, I'm gonna totally be a stan again for Robert Welsh, who I've mentioned a number of times. He was a great source. He's a professional makeup artist who is really great at what he does, and a great instructor. Talked about using concealer a lot more minimally like this rather than doing underneath your eyes, where you're gonna end up with just a big, you know, lighter area under the eyes, and it's going to end up settling into the lines and looking not great. So this to me is a really good technique. And then I do like to do sort of, I think of this as more of a contour concealer line, just sort of a line down my nose. And if this wasn't all in the way, I would go a little bit over that too. The other concealer I have is a NYX HD Studio Photogenic Concealer, which is a yellow concealer, which I use for a little bit of color correction and also very minimally. I'll just do like a dot to add into, can you see how that's a slightly different shade? So this one is like really light, a little too light maybe. And then that's got a little bit of yellow to it, and I'll actually put a tiny bit there to help to conceal my friend, the bruise that has been my friend for a week and will hopefully be not my friend for much longer. Anyway, let me go and blend this stuff and continue my tirade. No, just kidding. So anyway, back to what I was saying about Niesha K and microaggression and experiences in the workplace with sexist horsepucky. You know, what's funny about it, so I just want to talk a little bit about working for the delivery service. And I feel like I'll probably come back to that from time to time because it was such a impactful experience in my life. And it wasn't my first time working in an all-male environment, but it was the first time working in an all-male environment where I was doing a job where people clearly doubted my capability to do the job. And I used to get probably more angry in previous years than I did more recent time, because I started to think to myself, well, imagine you just spent a couple grand on a piece of furniture and you see 2 people delivering it, and one of them is like a really small person who's smaller than you. Wouldn't you feel some type of way about that? I can kind of empathize, but if anyone were to watch me in action, they would clearly be able to tell that I was capable. Like I wasn't fumbling around or anything like that. Like I have very strong lifting technique, and I know how to, in part to protect my body, I know how to lift heavy objects in a way that keeps them stable and balanced for my ability to hold them, and also like for whatever is around them to prevent them from bumping into things. So it's just not to say I did it perfectly every single time, but I was a lot better than some of the people I worked with who were much bigger than me. Let's put it that way. So now I'm gonna bust out, I've been using this for years. This is actually my 2nd or 3rd one. This is the Anastasia contour powder kit, light to medium range, and it's such a good contour kit to me. I think it's a little pricey, but it lasts for such a long time that it's really worth it to me. And you can kind of see on the side, it shows the range of shades that we have here. So I tend to use these 2 for the contour. I always do a little bit of this guy for the highlight. I might use a little bit of the yellow just on the bruise area, but it is pretty yellow, and like we're no longer in the the banana powder stage of makeup, which was, gosh, that was like 5 or 6 years ago now. So we don't do big swaths of yellow on our faces anymore. And then I really love the highlight that comes in it, which is why I have hit pan on that thing. So Just gonna go in and give myself some cheekbones on this moon face I got started here. So yeah, working a job like that, I talked about it before in another video, but I just wanted to sort of expand upon it and say, you know, one of the things I think about is the men who act like shitty toward women at jobs. There's no such thing as a man who is secure in himself who would ever act like that. It just doesn't, if you do the math, it doesn't add up. And I always think about it like this, like in terms of people who are like shit talkers in life, in relationships, or like there are people who create conflict with others. There are people who create drama or thrive on drama. There's no such thing as a person who is content, happy, and self-loving who does that, because those things are in direct conflict. Like if you love yourself in a really genuine way and you respect yourself, then you exude that, you project that toward others, and you treat others the same way. And then if somebody else is behaving in a way that you don't like, your reaction toward it is way different than if you're an insecure, self-loathing person, you know? So that analogy, the reason I say that is because I always think about one guy who was awesome, and I still am friends with, who I worked with at the delivery service. He was one of the first people I ever worked with there. He is the strongest person who worked there, and basically all the time we were there. There's one other guy that was super strong but didn't have his lifting skill because he was younger and less experienced, but he was still, that guy was a beast. I was always jealous of the big strong guys. Like I've been lifting since I was 15. I was the girl, this was back in the 90s when it's so different now than it was back then. Like women lifting weights in the 90s in a weight room where it was mostly men was not very typical. I was always one. There was just me and maybe once in a while one other woman. It was rare. So that's sort of where I developed my comfort level with like doing things around men that they don't necessarily think I should be doing. And what I learned to do is put my headphones on, blast my tunes, probably some Metallica or something like that, and do my shit and not let them even just ignore them, you know, just do my thing. And then they're like, oh, she's lifting heavier weights, she can handle it, and she's also making me look like whatever, I don't know. I'm trying not to fall into talking smack and going into anti-male stereotypes while talking about how I don't like the way men treat women, because that's not cool either. I'm trying to be fair-minded. I think that's really important, and it's not always easy to do when you're part of a group in society that has been historically marginalized for bullshit reasons. But anyway, I digress. This guy, he never treated me any kind of weird way. He never disrespected me. In fact, it was the opposite. He celebrated my strength. He would be like, see me do something and shake his head and be like, most of the guys don't ever do that. They can't do that because it's like there's more to it than strength. You know, like you can hoist something over your head that someone else is going to try to struggle with keeping that chest tight, but you can do it over your head because you know how to do like a clean and press or something, you know? Having my back meant so much to me. And the reason I talk about this is because, number one, he is an example of a self-secure man who is not threatened by a strong woman. And he is an example of how other men can make the world better by holding up strong women, by just encouraging them, by supporting them, not by being insecure and whack. Because I'll tell you what, man, so there were a couple instances. There was one guy, this fucking guy, he earned the nickname Sheriff Buzzkill. And I'm not going to say why, but it's so funny. I should, I'm not going to say. Anyway, this guy was he was just so insecure, and he had to prove himself all the time. So he would act like shit, and he would treat everyone he worked with badly, but I did not handle it well because he was so much younger than me. And I have this tendency, because I'm a gentle person and I'm a loving and kind person, at least I like to think that I am. I defer to people if they're a certain way where I know that their insecurity is driving them and they need to feel in charge. I'll let them. I'm like, that's fine, whatever. I'll just keep doing my thing, and like to an extent, you know, I'm not going to be a doormat. But this guy pushed me past that limit, and I was like, fuck this guy. At a certain point, I was like, no, you're not going to treat me like I'm your bitch. Like I'm not going to do that. That was really frustrating, but it was like, you know, that's the thing. Guys that act like that, We all know that shit, man. We all know what that's coming from. That's coming from insecurity. That's coming from you not feeling confident enough in yourself that you have to constantly put on a little show. And when you're working with someone who you perceive is weaker than you, whether it's because of their gender or because of their orientation or any reason, you're gonna like magnify that dick energy at them because that's the only way you can feel secure enough in yourself. And a real strong male person doesn't have to do that. So yeah, I hope that was a good, I feel like I could probably go on, and I don't want to just ramble on the same points, but like that to me is like so key. It's like, if you're a man and you feel that a woman coming into your environment is threatening or is bothersome to you, you might not recognize it as a threat. I know that's what it is, but you might not know that's what it is. But if you have some woman coming into your environment and you feel bothered by it, ask yourself, why? Why does this bother me? And unfortunately, I think a lot of the men that need to be asking themselves that question just don't have the level of self-awareness that they're going to. But I have hope. I do have hope, because I think people can grow and learn and get beyond their own crap. And I have empathy. I really have empathy for the fact that a lot of men who act like that, I normally don't spend this long on my contour. I'm just rambling, so I'm just doing the same shit over and over again. I have so much empathy for the fact that there's so many, for the fact that people behave in ways that are conditioned. You know, and it can be, I have struggled with that in my own life because of the family I grew up in and the dysfunction in my family, male dysfunction in particular, and having to have my own sort of come to Jesus and recognize like my thinking is skewed and I have to work on myself. And I was able to do that. And not everybody is, but I know that people can change. And sometimes hearing things like this from somebody who they know, like someone who wants people to get along better, like that's my ultimate goal in talking about things like this. I want any men who see this and maybe some of it resonates with them, to just take a look in the mirror and be like, hey, you know, like there's a lot of men that would get further with women if they acted more genuine and kind and, you know, just real. And they don't know how to do that because they're not secure in themselves yet. In covering this, look how good it got covered. It's like, I mean, it helps to have a ring light shining on you, you know, in daylight it might not be as covered. Yeah, that's cool. I feel like I said a lot of what I wanted to say, and I will go back and talk more about my experiences in working in the environment that I worked in before, because like I said, I think it's really informed my decisions to like, or my comfort level with going into something like trucking. I know already what it's like to walk up to a place where I'm delivering and have a door guy that won't even look at me, but he knows I'm standing there. I know how crappy that feels. One thing that Niesha said in her video that I think bears repeating is that there are lots of nice people out there too. There are jerks, and then there's really nice people, and they're everywhere. One of my very good friends says something that I always take with me, I think is so important. He says, wherever you go, you meet good people. And that to me is so true and so worth hanging on to, because for every jerk out there that, you know, has their own dysfunction that they're operating on, there's somebody else out there who is just a nice person, and of all genders. You know, there's a lot of nice men out there too, who are respectful and who see a woman doing a job that they're not used to seeing a woman in, and they're like, yes, like my friend at my job who championed me, and who, because he was sort of the head of all the people there doing the delivery work, if he didn't set that tone, things would not have been as good for me there. I know that. And that's the thing too, I guess I should leave on this note. If you're one of those guys out there like my friend who is a self-confident, self-respecting, self-loving man who celebrates women, strong women, self-assured, confident women, make it known. Don't hesitate to say something if another man around you is being insecure and exhibiting his own insecurity loudly about a woman, because you know that's BS, and you have the power, because that guy, he may not have shown it to you exactly, but he wishes he was more like you. All those guys do. All those guys do. That's why they act like that. So don't hesitate to speak up for us and, you know, continue being awesome, because you make our lives so much better than you can ever imagine. So on that note, I'm going to just continue doing my makeup and leave it at that. And thanks for listening, and I'll catch you on the next one.